Hello, everyone. Welcome to Voices, a library lecture series. We'd like to begin with an acknowledgement that we are gathered on the sacred homelands of the Mahikiniak or Mohican people who are the stewards of this land. Today, the community resides in Wisconsin and is known as the Stockbridge-Munsee Mohican Nation. We pay honor and respect to the ancestors past and present. Voices presents speakers on timely and enduring issues each semester to broaden and enrich the scope of studies at Hudson Valley Community College. Please fill out a survey at the link on our first slide or on our social media platforms. These help to inform our future programming. Today, Voices presents Kim Perone, a success coach and mindfulness trainer at the Center for Clarity, Compassion, and Contentment. Kim works with business professionals as a coach in one-on-one sessions and facilitates trainings in the workplace. She is the author of Finding Your Center, The Case for Clarity, Compassion, and Contentment. Please welcome Kim Perone.
Thank you, Anne, and it's great to be here with all of you today, talking about one of my favorite subjects, mindfulness. So happy to be with all of you today, talking about mindfulness for the busy person. I don't want you to think if you're busy, it doesn't apply to you. It's definitely a growing trend because it's something we need in our busy lifestyles and our busy schedules and fast-paced moving world that we have today. So mindfulness, fastest growing trend in 2020 as we get our technology straight. One of the things you might see on this slide is a person sitting on a rock. The image is silhouetted, beautiful lake, beautiful background, right? This is what we think of with mindfulness. This might be what we think of in meditation. And really, mindfulness is a living meditation. But we don't need to wait until we have time to sit on a rock and meditate on the lake. I hope you all do have time to do that at some point. But really, that's not what we need. People think, I can't slow down, I can't do this, I can't meditate. I'll wait until I am on vacation. No, I'm too busy on vacation. I'll wait till I'm retired, then I'll have lots of time. And it's not about needing time, it's about slowing down in a particular way. A mindful person is conscious, present, aligned, balanced, has optimal energy, calm. These are people we want to be around. These are people who make us feel good to be around. It's as opposed to the frenzy, crazy, multitasking, rushed, frustrated, rearranging, overwhelmed state that some of us find ourselves in because we're all cramming so much in our lives. And sometimes we truly are overflowing. As a coach, I deal with that all the time, trying to sort of organize and prioritize because we do have very full lives. A lot of people are counting on you at work, at home. So really, we want to inject this mindfulness, this calm presence in our everyday. And how can we do it when we really still have full lives? And we can. And I'm going to explain that to you. So what mindfulness is it's an ancient technique. It stretches back 2,500 years. And it's observing the present moment non-judgmentally. And it seems like, aren't we doing that all the time? I'm doing this right now, I'm in the moment, and actually I am because I'm speaking, so I really am in the moment. There's nothing else I'm doing right now. But we are judging, our brains are judging things all the time, labeling, good, bad, up, down. It's constantly judging, is this a good thing that's happening, is this a bad thing that's happening? So one of the ways mindfulness, being in the present moment and dropping that judgment can do is it actually is useful in quieting our mind's chattering. And if anyone's heard the expression monkey mind or felt anxious or dealt with anxiety in their lives, it's that chattering, it's the thoughts maybe I even had coming here today. I hope this is good, I hope people like that. We have this talking in our heads all the time. So we can use mindfulness to reduce some of that chattering that may make us anxious. The mindful person also accepts events in the present moment, whether they are good or bad. It is what it is. So mindfulness is a way of being. And it's a way of being in relationship. What we need to know, what you really need to know is our brains have a negativity bias. So this is one of the reasons that mindfulness can be very useful, is that even the most positive person has a negativity bias because our brains evolved. They evolved to sense danger. They evolved to to be able to run from danger and survive. So our survival mechanism makes our brain very highly alert to things that might go wrong, to things, the problem solving, things that we need to do in life. So there's an expression that says our brains are Velcro for bad and Teflon for good, which is a great way to remember that good is an expectation. So something good happens, we go, hey, that was great. And then it flies right off, right out of our mind, and the brain goes to the problems. The bad, so you know this experience. You ruminate, right? We ruminate. It might wake us up in the middle of the night even. It's in our brains. It's echoing, oh, that conversation I had that went bad. So this keeps happening to us. And so for us to know that, when you move away from that chattering mind in more mindful moments, you can understand that that's actually a good thing for you. It's a healthy thing. That's why this is a wellness topic. So why do you want to be mindful? So leading into this, it helps us regulate our emotions. And I'm going to give you some techniques to be mindful that are easy, that you can work into your everyday in a few minutes. But we want to do this because it helps us regulate our emotions, reduce our stress, observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment. So you're thinking, I do that all the time. No, without judgment, and make better decisions and more fully engage in life. There are three main characteristics of mindfulness. One, an intention to be present. Intention to be present. Two, attention to whatever you are doing, the sights, the sounds, the smells, that can help bring us into the present moment. The temperature in the room, anything to bring you into the present moment and away from, again, that chattering mind, the thoughts. An attitude to cultivate non-judgment, openness, trusting, and non-reactive. Again, we might think we do this all the time, but we don't. And think about how a challenge is too. Like if the technology is not working here, it's still something that we can handle, right? There's an openness. This almost frees me to just speak freely. So this is how you're going to do it. Press pause. You can pause anytime. It's not, your brain is going to tell you, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. There's a million things here. I have this huge to-do list. You can press pause. Take a few deep breaths. I'm going to admit I was a busy business person before I became a coach, and frankly, I did not understand the big deal about breath. But now I do. It activates your relaxation response, which you want, because if you start getting too stressed, too overwhelmed, you potentially could go into fight or flight. And when you do that, you're not in the right part of your brain to reason well. So despite what's going on, you do want to maintain a certain level of calm because you will be in your higher functioning brain to deal with whatever crisis is going on. So the breath itself, if it was just 3 deep breaths or 5 deep breaths, that's fine in and of itself. Here's a little bit bigger but small exercise is STOP, which is just an acronym for stop what you're doing, take 5 deep breaths, inhales, exhales. The O, observe the body and thoughts. The P, proceed. Now the observing of the body and thoughts is potentially you could be very stressed. Think about what you just thought about. Maybe you had a stressful thought. I'm never going to get this done today, or this isn't going to work out well. That might have been what was actually stressing you out. So then you proceed. So that stopping, breathing, observing your body, maybe in your body you hold your stress in your stomach. So all of a sudden your stomach is clenched or your jaw is clenched. Observe that, and breathe into those parts of your body to relax. And then you can proceed, and I'm sure that your brain will function better having just taken that few minutes. Another mindful exercise is RAIN. Again, an acronym, nice and easy to remember, and these are not the kinds of things that take a long time. So you can be mindful today with these new techniques and exercises. Recognize what's going on. That's the R. So recognize what's going on. There's something overwhelming happening, maybe a crisis, or maybe just it's been a streak of a month of too much busyness. In fact, when it comes to the pandemic, it's been 6 months of stress for a lot of people. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, stop and just recognize what's going on, because you're probably stressed for some really good reasons. The A is allow the experience to be just as it is, okay? So the resistance can be an energy waster. We recognize what's going on, we allow the experience to be what it is. It is what it is, okay. So next, we investigate with kindness. The reason why the I, investigate with kindness, is so important is we're not often very kind to ourselves and our thoughts. This is where we would start blaming and judging. Oh, if only I had done this, or if only so-and-so had done that, this wouldn't be happening. That's, again, resistance. It's self-criticism. It's criticism of others. So investigate what's happening with kindness. And then the N is natural awareness. Natural awareness, which comes from not identifying with it. So the easiest way to explain what that means is if something fails that you are trying to do, something fails that you are trying to do. You are not a failure. So that's probably the most visible example to allow you to know, do not identify with what's happening. You are the one experiencing what's happening. Another great technique is A, B, C, and D. Okay, so again, very easy to remember. And all this means is, it is a means to meditating at your desk at any time for a few minutes. So the A is anchor. And what that means is sitting in your chair, feeling your arms on the arms of the chair, feeling the back of your legs on the chair, your feet on the floor, or inside your shoes. You know, feel the temperature in the room. Breathe. So you're already breathing because you're breathing all the time, but then just inhale and exhale very comfortably, not trying to control it, but start focusing on your breath. The C stands for counting. So sometimes it's helpful, especially if you're a beginning meditator, to count. Count the cycles of in-breath and out-breath. Inhale, exhale is 1. The D stands for distraction. As you're doing this for a few minutes, if you're counting and you get distracted and you lose your place, just begin again. If you hear a car horn outside or somebody in your house makes some noise, if something distracts you, you have a thought come in, that's okay, just come back to your breath, come back to the counting. If the counting itself is distracting, just abandon the counting and maybe just think inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. This is a simple meditation that you can do by yourself in as little as 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and right where you are, wherever you're sitting. Now, this slide probably looks like I made a mistake, but I didn't. What do these 3 things have in common? Well, in order to explain what they have in common, I need to tell you a little bit more about me. So these things taught me about mindfulness before I knew what mindfulness was. In fact, years before I knew what mindfulness was. So one of the reasons why I'm a coach, I certainly loved being a communication professional, but one of the reasons why I became a coach was after a decade of loss. So in 2004, 16 years ago now, I was in a car accident and I lost my 9-year-old son, Jack, and my 7-year-old son, Steven, survived. So as you can imagine, and I can feel your empathy, and I know that it's a challenging and tragic experience that we lived through, that some days I can't even believe that we lived through, but I had to figure out how to live a life. My son deserved it. My surviving son deserved it, and my son that passed away deserved for us not to become broken and complete mess and dysfunctional after his passing. So these things taught me about mindfulness in extreme stress, extreme grief. So the socks you see on the left, well, fuzzy socks that were very comfortable grounded me. And I didn't even know it was grounding. But basically, my feet, if I could focus on my feet, when I put the fuzzy socks on, it was comfortable. And there was this moment of physical comfort in an otherwise completely 24/7 discomfort of grief. So if I could focus on my feet, what I really was doing and didn't know it was I was being mindful and I was grounding myself in the present using my senses. The water glass. So I was a communications professional. So there was a time, several months after my son passed, that I had to do a speaking engagement. And I was at a dais and I was on a panel discussion about emergency response because I was a communication professional. And before I went in, I started to get lightheaded, feel like I was going to faint. I was breathing heavy and shallow and fast, and my heart was beating. And I wasn't sure if I needed to just turn around and run and go home and just abandon the whole event and just be a no-show. That didn't feel right either. So a friend of mine asked if I was okay, and I'm like, I'm okay. So when I sat down, I held the water glass. Before it started, I held the water glass. And I want you to imagine the water glass on a dais, the audience in a banquet room in front of you. And the glass had the condensation on the outside. It was cool. And I just held on to the glass a little bit as everyone was getting settled. And it calmed me. Again, I was using my senses. I felt the cool glass, the wet water on the outside of it, and I started to calm. It grounded me, and when the event started, it went on without a hitch. And now SpongeBob. So this is one of my favorites. So my 7-year-old son survived the car accident, and he was just about to turn 8. So one of the things I noticed in the months after we lost Jack, his brother, was if SpongeBob was making him laugh, if he was watching SpongeBob, he laughed. Because in that moment, he was just paying attention to SpongeBob. And I realized that he was in the present moment laughing at something funny, not in his thoughts, worried about everything that we had lost and everything that was uncertain in our future. And I thought, we need to learn more of that. We need to be able to be in the present moment and live life so that we can build a new life with the three of us. So I'm so appreciative. It may look like a funny slide, but it has deep, profound meaning. And one of the things I want to share is that was like an instinct. That wasn't something I had learned, and I didn't realize that it was mindfulness. So I think there may be ways that you've done this in times of extreme stress where you had to come to the present moment, or you enjoyed something. You enjoyed something that you do that was fun and loud and in the moment because it took you away from your thoughts, your worrisome thoughts about the past and the future. This slide, the mountain meditation, is another great sense of grounding. And it's a visual, and you can find out on YouTube a lot of guided meditations for the mountain meditation, but I'm just going to summarize it here for you today. Basically, it is imagining the mountain in your mind's eye, imagining the most beautiful mountain you can think of, how solid it is, how it stays the same in any type of weather, how it has seasons and it has sunlight and dark. Sometimes it's pelted with rain, hail, sleet maybe even. And sometimes it has the sun shining upon its face. In this visualization, you can embody those qualities. If you are the mountain, you are solid and centered and grounded, and things are happening around you. And you are just being you. You are being essentially you. You are doing the work you need to do. You are living with your family the way you need to. But everything's happening around you, and you have the seasons and the emotional seasons and your ups and downs, and sometimes it is weathering very difficult storms. So a mountain meditation can really help us embody that sense of grounded nature, that things outside us don't all have to be perfect. And this year, 2020, boy, we've been testing that over and over again. All this uncertainty, and if you're feeling really stressed by the continuing uncertainty, just remember the mountain. You are centered. You are doing what you need to do, what's essentially you, and you will have seasons around you. And what I'd like to impart, hopefully what you've taken away from this presentation is when we are mindful, life becomes a living meditation. And all kinds of moments, a 5-minute lunch break, a mindful eating. You could be just eating your lunch, thinking about the temperature around you, sitting in the sun, taking a break. Those are mini mental breaks that can reduce your stress and make you enjoy your life. Your life is happening now. You want to enjoy it. You don't want happiness or relief or calm to be coming when you're done, later. I'll be happy. Later, I'll be content. Later, when I get this done, when I get this paper done, when I get this course done, when I get this degree, when I get that next promotion. We really want to be noticing the life that's happening now around us. So hopefully I've left you wanting to know a little bit more and some questions and or maybe clarification on some things. Thank you, Anne. We have some questions. All right. Okay. So, first question that we have is, I'm afraid I will lose my momentum if I slow down. How can I still be mindful? And I think this goes back to the brain's negativity bias. So just to delve a little bit deeper, because I know we have the time, is mentally, our brain, that problem-solving part of us, and in coaching we call it the ego, and it doesn't mean that you're egotistical, it just means that it is the part of us, the sense of self that wants to keep us protected. It is telling you that you don't have time to slow down. That's why this is slowing down in a particular way. That's why this is slowing down in an empowering way, not a losing your edge at all. So first you have to tell your mind that's saying, we're too busy for this. We can't take deep breaths. I can't stop for even 1 minute right now because I'm overwhelmed. It's debating your brain. It's debating the ego and saying, no, I need to be in the best shape to deal with whatever this crisis is, whatever this to-do list is, whatever this challenge is. And that you actually do retrain your thoughts or be able to come back from thoughts and take some deep breaths and be in the moment. And it will return to you. It will return energy to you. So that is, I do understand that perspective that it feels like maybe that's slowing down. Maybe that's losing momentum, losing speed, but you actually could gain it because especially in a crisis, your emotions will hijack your executive functions. So you will go into your primal cave brain that wants to run from danger. So that's not the best place. So your momentum is best served by slowing down in a mindful way. The next is, how can I be mindful when I am so busy? Again, my motto, you're too busy not to be mindful. You're too busy. It will help you maintain your edge. It will help you be more effective. It will help you stay clear. Our brains get too cluttered and overwhelmed. That constant thinking, and really even too, this is a little kind of a mini lesson too, but the autonomic nervous system, you have the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system, and they work opposite each other. So the parasympathetic system is your calm response, your soothing, it helps you go to sleep at night. But the sympathetic is more of that busyness that you experience during the day. So sometimes when someone's very stressed at work, very busy, going through difficult times, they may not be able to sleep. Yet it seems like they would be falling into bed at night because they would be so tired. So it helps us regulate. It helps us to re-regulate after dysregulation of times of extreme stress. The next question, which of the tactics you discussed is your favorite and most used? I would say that really, and I was asked this morning, I gave another presentation, but moving to my senses. So when my brain starts to ruminate, and sometimes, I'm sure that some of you can relate to this, is sometimes it's in the middle of the night, it wakes you up, or you woke up, and then your brain starts thinking. And I heard it described by a businesswoman in the most beautiful way to this morning in a presentation is then the people start talking to me. So all the noises, all the voices of everyone you know in your life start talking, and then that to-do list gets going, or it's what happened yesterday that I'm not happy about. And so when that happens, how do we stop that? Well, one, believing that it's in your best interest to stop that runaway train in the middle of the night, right? Because the brain wants to tell you, we have to think about this. We have to be working on this. But you don't need to be working on it in the middle of the night. So one, believing it's in your best interest to cut off that rumination or the to-do list or all that mental thinking in the middle of the night. Two, interrupt it by starting to pay attention to the senses. Feel your body on the sheets. You know, is it a soft blanket? Is it the pillow under your head? Is it the temperature in the room? There's actually a body scan meditation that is part of a mindfulness practice, and you really just start refocusing your attention on the most neutral things. You're pulling your attention away from the troubles, problems, and everything that needs to be solved, and you're thinking about your foot, your shin, your knee, your leg, your hip, and you just really start going around your body. And it sounds crazy because your brain is probably like, that's the stupidest thing to waste mental energy on. But really what it is it's like lifting a barbell. It's pulling your attention away from that which is distressing you and really not useful in the middle of the night, as just to extend that example, pulling your attention to neutral things so that you can relax again and go back to sleep. So I think that's a great technique. It's one of my favorites. And it's also a great way to meditate too, is before you get up. You know, just kind of laying there, breathing, paying attention to your breath, and doing that for a few minutes is a great practice too. How can I learn more about mindfulness? So I appreciate this question because sometimes I forget to mention, if you're interested in more, and I can assure you, I just scratched the surface to the tiniest bit today. But if you are interested in more, mindful.org is a great electronic newsletter. They have all kinds of articles and topics and techniques that they share, and sometimes the meditations, the sound files for the meditations. So if you're interested, you can subscribe to that. They have a wonderful magazine as well, Mindful Magazine. And also, there are mindfulness training programs, such as mindfulness-based stress reduction. So that is a particular program started by John Kabat-Zinn, who is a doctor who brought mindfulness from the East to our Western culture in his position, specifically to address chronic pain in patients. So for patients, it was that bringing the attention away from pain or emotional pain and into non-judgment, noticing sights and sounds, and again, control over our thoughts. And it might seem like, oh, if you were in pain, that's the last thing you wouldn't want to be mindful, but it actually is less painful if you move in, lean into it rather than resist it. So mindfulness-based stress reduction is a program that anyone can take. It's an 8-week program, and I just took one of their programs over the summer, and it was really great. And it really tests our brain. Our brain wants to be busy and thinking and chatting and judging and labeling all the time. And really, it's discernment for us to be able to decide when we're supposed to be doing that in life, which there are certainly times, but not overdoing that, not letting our thinker run away. There's an expression, the untrained mind is a runaway train, and I think we see it in our society. So many people suffering from anxiety and emotional stress. That actually reminds me of another wonderful technique. And a great visualization exercise is the second arrow. So if you've never heard about the second arrow, it's this imagery that the first arrow is your pain. Okay, that actually happened. So something happened. Something was bad. You lost your job. Maybe it was something physical. You were in a car accident. There's pain. The second arrow is the thoughts and feelings you have about it. So that's that part where we start thinking about what it means and how emotionally painful it is. So really, the first arrow is inevitable. Something happened. The second arrow is where you can have some flexibility and some control, is how you are arranging your thoughts about it. Are you obsessing about what happened? Are you resisting it? Are you judging and labeling and blaming? And all of those non-mindful qualities can add so much to the suffering. Do we have any other questions? Oh, good. Some more are coming. Thank you. Okay. How can I deal with feeling guilt over taking time to be mindful? So that's a wonderful question. Thank you for that. Guilt gives me a chance to talk about worry, fear, guilt, doubt. These are not emotions that serve us. We have them. They serve us if we have to run away from danger, literally. But in general, in our society today, they are more of the resistant qualities. They are the things that hold us back, okay? So it's really better to, when you feel guilty or you feel fearful or you're doubting yourself, that would be coming from ego. That would be coming from your brain. That's the location where those feelings come from. So really, to understand that your thinking and your being are two different things. So you can shift or you can debate that voice. It's very common to think that the voice in your head, that's me, isn't it? That's me, that talking that's happening, that thinking I'm doing, that's me. But not all of our thoughts have our best interest at heart. They really don't. And I'm sure you can even think of examples where you've had a thought, you felt like it was you, but it was maybe a negative thought about yourself that you wouldn't say to a friend. You wouldn't say that expression or like, oh, I'm so stupid or I can't do this. You wouldn't say that to a friend. You would be more supportive. So that's a way to get in tune with the counter voice, really coming from your being rather than your thinking, is to say, well, what would a good friend say to you? Or what would a loving grandmother say to you? Once you start cultivating that voice, the counter to guilt, the counter to fear, the counter to doubt, what a more supportive internal dialogue would be, you can really run with these techniques. I mean, it can open up a lot for you. And let's see, the next question. How can I help others, my students, be more mindful? Oh, one great thing that you can do in class or in meetings, in beginnings and endings, everyone's just come together. One of the ways to help students be more mindful, I think, would be maybe even to have a mindful moment to let everyone get, they're just rushing into the classroom, right? And rushing in, even if it's the virtual classroom, rushing in. And now maybe there is that mindful moment, just a few rounds of breath before you even start teaching, to let them, they were rushing from where they were before, and we want that to be cleared and for them to be ready and to be present to start the class. And definitely sharing resources, and really as a society together collectively, we can debunk the myth, I'm too busy for this. You know, we've had this really high-pressured culture. Modern society is very fast-paced, but really, we will be better served. Our brains matter, and so the studies show that it is good for our brain, and it's good for our effectiveness, and it's good for even in our bodies. Stress tends to accumulate in our bodies and cause us physical ailments. So I think one of the ways anyone can support anyone else in being more mindful is to debunk the myth that there's no time to be mindful. You know, our life is happening now. Our life's happening every minute. We need to be experiencing it along the way. And I think a lot, if we do that more, we'll be enjoying our lives more overall. Could you talk about more grounding techniques, something that could be used in emergency? Okay, so definitely in an emergency, deep breathing, because again, the hijacking, the emotions, hijacking your higher level functions in your brain. So you're always better if you're not in that state. You don't want to be in your primal brain or your cave brain, as it's sometimes called, to be handling whatever's happening in the emergency. So deep breathing, 3 to 5 inhales and exhales is huge. It's little, but it's huge. So that really want to make sure people understand that that is one of the actual best things you can do. Another is to notice or the labeling of it. So sometimes we end up going down a rabbit hole because something happened, it's an emergency, something went wrong, it's our thoughts around it. So remember the second arrow, it's all our thoughts around it add to the stress, add to us potentially going into that fight or flight part of our brain, our primal brain, which is, this is a disaster. Maybe it's something that happened, you know, you failed an exam and now you're thinking you're gonna flunk out of school, right? So there's an example. You're like, wow, the brain just jumped way ahead like that. I was teasing my husband because, you know, over these months of COVID and dealing with all the changes, and he's an extremely outgoing person. He's like, you know, one day he was just talking and he's like, this is gonna go on for 4 years. And I said, where'd you get 4 years from? You know, he's kind of challenging his thoughts on that. It was like his thinking on it went from 1.5 to 2 to, well, then, but maybe it won't all be bad. And really was sort of extrapolating out what was going to happen. And that's a normal thing for our brains to do, to kind of go there, to just think and anticipate what this all means further down the road. But we don't have to, and if that causes us stress, we don't have to know all those answers. We don't have to follow our brain to the nth degree, figuring out every scenario that might happen to be prepared. I think that's a myth too. We end up stressing ourselves out and really lost in our thoughts when we feel like we have to spend that much mental energy on every scenario in order to be prepared. You are prepared. Like trust. Trust is a quality of mindfulness. So trust is a quality of mindfulness that can help us say, I don't see the answer, but I believe there's an answer there, and that I can just be doing what I need to do now, and I don't need to figure this all out mentally in the moment at that time. And you know, the example that I shared from our personal experience of, you know, extreme bereavement, extreme grief of the loss of a child. I mean, really, the ways in which I was thinking, I'll never be the same again, my life will never be the same again, how am I ever going to live with this pain, was debilitating. It was debilitating. And today, when I talk to clients who are dealing with loss and I do bereavement sessions, I like to share, you don't have to know all the answers. You are walking the journey. And that you don't need to see what your future looks like today in your thoughts, because it's often extremely difficult to know, how am I going to live a happy life after tragedy? And that would apply to other tragedies as well. It can be absolutely debilitating to not be able to see the future. And in the pandemic, not to gloss over, a lot of people have experienced significant hardship and loss during this time as well. And that can be debilitating, and we don't know all the answers, and we are dealing with uncertainty, and you might be feeling stress about how the winter's coming or the cooler weather, and now we're all going to go back inside when we've had a chance to have summer make us feel a little bit more normal. And so that line of thinking could be that rumination, the brain just going down deeper and deeper and deeper into negativity or even anger. And so another technique is, if you start feeling angry or frustrated, panicked, get curious. What's going on for me right now? You can trace it back to your thoughts too. What was I just thinking now? Oh, I was thinking that things are never going to go back to normal. I was thinking I'm never going to be able to go to on that vacation to Europe. You know, there are ways in which our thinking starts to get out ahead of us, or I won't find a job because maybe you lost your job, and lots of people have lost their jobs. So then you think, I'll never get another job. So that might cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of potentially panic for you. And so one of the ways is to really just step back, get curious. What am I feeling right now? When we feel our feelings in the moment and then taking the judgment off of it, of course you would feel that way. Of course I would feel panicked. Of course I would kind of leap to that worry that I wouldn't find another job. So recognize that that's okay, that that's normal. Take the judgment off it, feel it, be in that moment, bring yourself back to grounding and center, and you will feel more comfortable and you will be practicing mindfulness. Ah, nice. Great. How can I tell if a physical ailment is tied to my mental health? Well, we can use mindfulness to do a little experimentation. Obviously, no replacement for going to a doctor or seeing a therapist or a counselor. I'm certainly there to serve you. But one mindful technique is get in tune with where you hold stress in your body. Okay, so for some of us, it's our stomach. For some of us, it might be our jaw. For some, it might be headaches. Maybe back, tension, muscles, even sometimes all over, like you might sleep all tight and find that that's where your tension is. So if you get in tune with your body and how you feel in your body, where that stress is, and a mindful technique would be to just breathe, inhale and exhale, 2 areas of your body, like feel like you're breathing in, visualize breathing in fresh air to that stomach, you know, or even a mindful technique would be to use your senses. Say, and this is, I do hold stress in my stomach, right? So it's like, you might even find that you do this naturally as part of your instinct, but like you could touch your stomach, you know, you could be gentle to yourself. And I think the more fine-tuned you get to where your stress might be held, the more you might be able to determine if it is something that's an ailment or if it's where you're holding your stress so that part of your body is getting stressed over and over and over again. But again, not a replacement for a doctor or potentially a counselor, but it could be some of your beginning indicators. Okay, well, thank you for having me today. I hope that was helpful, and it's something I enjoy presenting. And so tell your friends, be mindful ambassadors, and take very, very good care of yourself, and don't forget to breathe.